Oh yeah, baby! A Sonic 1, a Big Tank 0. I'm sorry.
I'm scared!
Video game adaptations. For the longest time, they were often dreaded by most people, as usually these movies often sucked hard balls. One of these movies, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, would go on to be hailed as one of the worst films of all time. Doom, Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li, Warcraft, Assassin's Creed, Prince of Persia, Need for Speed, Silent Hill Revelation, all just to list a few, sucked. For a while, it seemed like video game adaptations were just always meant to fail. But then suddenly, not too long ago, a fuzzy little guy came by and surprised the living hell out of all of us. And his name was Pikachu.
Ha! Got him!
Not only was this movie surprisingly good for the premise that it had, but the level of devotion and care that it took into making sure they got the source material right is pretty impressive for a video game adaptation. It's also probably safe to say that it's the best anime adaptation that we've gotten so far too. But I get it, that's another bundle of sticks entirely, and I guess you can make an argument that it's not really an anime adaptation since Ash and his friends aren't in the movie, but oh, details, oh my god. Pokemon is a big show with tons of different characters and they do spin-offs all the time, so shut up. Bottom line, people were not expecting Detective Pikachu to be as good as it was, if at all. I mean, come on. Ryan Reynolds voicing Pikachu, it sounded so stupid, honestly, despite Ryan Reynolds being the best human being on Earth right now. Next to Pedro, of course. But I was surprised at how much the movie actually made it all work. The people in that movie really cared about the source material and wanted to do it justice. Where were these people when Dragon Ball Evolution was being made? So, with the world seeing that a video game adaptation could actually be good, people were a little more optimistic about them. So, when the Sonic the Hedgehog movie was officially announced, people were actually kind of excited.
Oh my god!
It's kind of impossible to talk about this movie without talking about the abysmal original trailer for the film and also Sonic's original design for himself. And I don't think I have anything new to add to this conversation. Why does Sonic the Hedgehog have better teeth than I do? What's with those hands? Gangster's Paradise? Modern talk? It just looks so awful. Beyond awful. I don't know what on earth these people were thinking when they thought that this was a good design. I guess they saw the more realistic designs of some of those other live-action adaptation movies like Alvin and the Chipmunks and noticed how those movies gave those characters a more realistic look as opposed to the cartoons and thought, yes, good, and created this abomination. Meow. Again, the longer you look at the original design, the worse it gets. Why are his eyes so small? Why are his ears so small? Why is his nose so pointy? Dear God, you could put a hole in Knight's armor with that thing. Not only does it just look unappealing to say the least, but because of his small facial features, it leaves him unable to properly emote. He looks almost like a creepy doll that watches you as you walk by in a haunted house. This, of course, leads to the discussion of the filmmaker's reaction to the criticism of Sonic's original design and the film's first trailer. This sort of thing has never really happened before in Hollywood, at least to this extent. It's really unprecedented. Never before has criticism of a movie, before it released, caused a movie to be delayed in order for it to be improved upon. It's a pretty remarkable thing, even if you don't necessarily agree with it. I've heard discussions about this sort of thing with people saying that the internet shouldn't be able to affect a movie to this level before its release, and honestly, I'd be lying if I said I didn't agree. Saying that it worked out in this case would actually make me sound a bit like a hypocrite, because it actually does make me sound like a hypocrite. I do believe the changes made because of the backlash genuinely did make Sonic the Hedgehog a better movie. But with that being said, I still believe that the internet shouldn't be able to affect a movie's production to this degree, even if there are benefits to it. And look, I get it, okay? Just about everybody hated the original trailer and original design of Sonic at first. I understand the blowback was huge compared to other circumstances similar to this one, but still, we've seen how some people can be really touchy about criticism in general, and if this shows us anything, it's that all it really takes for this sort of thing to happen is one soft filmmaker and one whiny asshole on YouTube to delay a movie by months in order to make probably really unnecessary changes to a film. In some cases, like this one, it can work out, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't recognize the potential damage this kind of power can have on the future of filmmaking. There's also the rumor that the filmmakers intentionally designed him badly, that the movie was never going to use the horrible design and it was all just a big marketing tactic meant to hype the movie up. Apparently, the animators for Sonic knew that Sonic fans would despise this design, but the executives at Paramount believed that your average moviegoer wouldn't really care, so they just went with it anyway. But there's no definitive proof of this being the case, and it's all just people wanting to throw up conspiracy theories, and I'm not even remotely getting into that crap. But regardless if you believe that it was just a marketing ploy, or actually designed that way simply because the executives didn't really care about it, it doesn't change the fact that what happened to Sonic the Hedgehog is still a remarkable event. Again, whether you like it or not, you can't deny how extraordinary this was in general. An entire movie was delayed and fixed in order to make the general public happier than it was. We've never seen something like this happen before, at least to this extent again. Usually when people say that a movie looks bad and it ends up being bad, then usually the studio just takes the big L, releases it with no fucks given, and then just moves on to the next project. But Sonic the Hedgehog is a rare specimen indeed. It is a true testament to how powerful the internet can be. For better or for worse, it's still pretty extraordinary. Even if the movie is far from that. I don't think anyone was expecting Sonic the Hedgehog to be a masterpiece. In fact, I'm pretty sure most people believed that the movie was going to be so bad and so terrible that it would probably go down in history as one of those so bad it's good kind of films. But after the delay and fixing Sonic's design, the movie will now mostly be remembered as, it's good I guess, if not remarkable. And yeah, I think that's the best way to sum up this movie. It's pretty good, but not great. It's got good stuff in it, but it's also got bad stuff in it. None of the bad stuff is truly horrendous as some people might have led you to believe, but the good stuff isn't truly incredible either. You've probably heard all those jokes about the movie winning Best Picture because of the pandemic and stuff, and how most movies were delayed, but oh come on. We all know Soul deserves it. As for this movie though, the bad stuff definitely sticks out though. Let's start off with that opening, and when I say opening, I mean the flashback part. For starters, it is incredibly rushed, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense frankly. I know that there's a sequel coming out next year, and they'll probably answer some of these questions, so I'll be lenient with it until we actually get some answers down the line. But if the answers suck, I'm gonna be pissed again. For starters, who the heck is Longclaw? I don't remember her in any of the games, so I assume she's an original character. Well, okay, but how'd she find Sonic? Why is she taking care of him? Again, I'm sure these questions will be answered later, but why not now? All this opening does is raise questions and also probably exists just to set up a sequel and nothing else. My problem with this is that outside of showing us how Sonic came to Earth, it doesn't really have much to do with the story itself in this movie. Honestly, you could have just cut the whole flashback out of the movie and start with Tom scanning for speeding cars, and not much would have been that different. Or, a better idea, maybe save this scene for later in the movie, like when Sonic and Tom are in the hotel room together. You Rule 34 people better knock it off! You know who you are! And have Sonic reveal how he got to Earth there. Maybe explore a bit more as to how Longclaw discovered Sonic. That would add a lot more to Sonic and Tom's relationship, which is the center of this film. Their relationship is fine overall, like it's okay, but I feel like this reveal could have helped push it to a whole different level. Also, why doesn't Longclaw just go through the portal with Sonic? Why is she staying behind to die? You could easily escape with Sonic and keep taking care of him. Nothing is stopping you! This is honestly really stupid of her. All she's done is just strain the poor kid. If she actually did die, or was so badly wounded she couldn't move, and that forced Sonic to go through the portal, that'd be one thing. But no, she had to heroically sacrifice herself like a fucking idiot. The next problem with this movie are the human characters. I don't really care for many of them. Tom is okay, and I'll go more into Robotnik later in his own section because Lord knows he deserves it. As for the rest of the humans though, they all kinda suck. Tom's wife is just the wife. She doesn't really have much of a personality save for sassy black lady. Oof. Tom's niece is cute, I suppose. I do like the scene where she's the one who gives Sonic his iconic shoes. That was a nice scene, I like that. For some odd reason, the sister-in-law just hates Tom for like no reason at all. Seriously, why is she such a bitch? Every line that comes out of her fucking mouth is leave him this and divorce that. Like, seriously, what's her fucking problem? And please don't comment that it's because she's a black woman and he's a cop. Number 1, she never brings up that he's a cop. Number 2, he's married to a black woman. And 3, this is Sonic the Hedgehog, not fucking Get Out, okay? Please don't make me disable the comment section. Most of the humans in this movie are just complete brain-dead idiots. Like this guy, for example. Who let this fucker be a cop? You may think that I'm exaggerating, but no. This dumbass doesn't even know how to answer a phone. Like, seriously, I get that this is a kid's movie, and I get that they were trying to make a point with Tom feeling more like a babysitter instead of a cop, but you could have shown us this without having everyone around him actually be like a fucking baby. I also think the scene where Sonic blows up at the baseball field was a little forced. And don't get me wrong, it starts out great. I'll go more into the scene as a whole later, but when Sonic gets sad that he's alone, he just starts running around the bases for no reason at all. Like, what? Why is he doing this? I get that he's sad, but what prompted this? Like, is this what people do when they're sad? They just run around bases? Like, again, what? How about this instead? Have the old guy who actually saw Sonic and drew him accordingly, a genuinely nice nod to the meme admittedly, actually succeeds in capturing Sonic at the baseball field. Sonic's just standing out there, wallowing in his sadness, and the old guy is able to sneak up on him and throw a net on him and capture him. Sonic panics and causes the blackout. Again, a simple fix is all this scene really needed to be a great way to start the plot. But no, Sonic just runs. Gotta go fast, I guess. You also have the stuff you pretty much expect from these kind of movies. You have pop culture references, you have toilet humor here and there. They bring up Olive Garden a lot in this movie for some reason. Gotta have that pasta bowl, I suppose. Man, Jim Carrey better have gotten a lifetime supply of Olive Garden after this movie. Lord knows he deserves it. And yes, everyone, yes, Sonic flosses. He flosses in the movie. Thank you, Internet, for throwing a big fucking temper tantrum over it. He only does it 2 times in the entire thing, and y'all were ready to burn down cities over it. It doesn't ruin the movie, get the fuck over it. I actually hope to God that Sonic flosses at least 30 times in the sequel, just to piss you all off again. It may date the movie, sure, but watching your reactions will make it all worth it. Now let's see, what else is wrong with this movie? Well, I guess the story is pretty basic and predictable. It's not bad per se, just kind of above average. It does a decent job when it comes to having a plot, and there are genuinely enjoyable moments here and there, but I'd be lying if I said this movie surprised me in any way. Yeah, when it comes to these kind of films, you come to the movie for one thing, and that is the main character of the story, and fortunately for us, when it comes to Sonic, well, let's just say that I am a hypocrite now, because I'm so glad they went back and fixed it. I am RaisorBlade, and I'm here to ask you a question. When you go to see these kinds of movies, do you go to see the human characters? No, said the fans of Garfield. I want to see him eat lasagna. No, said the fans of Woody Woodpecker. I have come to hear that iconic laugh. No, says the fans of the Smurfs. Frankly, I didn't watch that one at all, and for good reason. Most of you probably watch these movies for one reason only. To see the one you already know. To see the wacky adventures they get into. You chose the character. Sure, in Scooby-Doo and Detective Pikachu, hey, that rhymed. The humans work in those stories because they always have. But in things like Smurfs, oh god, why would you watch Smurfs? Sonic is sort of in the same boat. In the older games, he never really interacted with any humans, save for Robotnik, of course. And in the later games, when he did interact with them, they were questionable at best. Man, that's some Florida man shit right there. Bottom line is, you didn't come to the Sonic movie to see the humans, you came to see Sonic fight Robotnik. You want to see him smash the robots, and eat chili dogs, and protect nature and stuff, like in the games. And fortunately for us, save for his awful original design, the people behind this movie really do get Sonic. And I know, Sonic isn't exactly the most in-depth character, but what's there, they do nail pretty well, I think. Sonic the Hedgehog is Sonic the Hedgehog in this movie. I know, the floor is made out of floor, but when you've seen some amazing characters be completely butchered before your very eyes, and then you see a live-action adaptation actually do a good job with the character, it surprises you. Or at least it did me. Now, I'm not the most avid Sonic fan. I don't play every game when it releases or whatever, but I still enjoy the games that I did play when I did play them. As a matter of fact, the very first video game I ever played was Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Sega Genesis. In fact, I actually still have the case for the game right here. Don't ask me where the cartridge is though, because I have no idea. But with all that being said though, Sonic is still a fun character. He's sassy, he's cool, but he's still a nice guy that cares about others. He's kind of your typical late 80s, early 90s character. You know the one I'm talking about. He's a cool dude with attitude. He's rebellious for the kids, but he fights for what's right, which makes parents happy. It's a win-win, and he's pretty much that in this movie too. In the film, Sonic, because in this version he's an alien, is forced to hide away from everyone and kinda just stalks everybody. Of course, this is all because he's just desperate for some form of interaction with people. As I said before, I really do like that baseball scene where he does play by himself. It was a really fun, charming scene that really illustrates how Sonic really just wants to have friends and be, in a way, normal. It is a nice way to show us the inner struggle that he's facing with being alone, and it's a good way to kickstart the plot. Until he just starts running for no reason. Yeah, that's the one part of the scene I'm not a fan of, but the rest of the scene is overall good. I actually do like the fact that they gave Sonic a bit more in this movie compared to what was in the games, where he's just the main character, and that's really about it. The coolest thing about working with a character like Sonic is that you can do pretty much whatever you want with him, as long as you get his personality right. With Sonic being such a basic character and not having much of a backstory to begin with, that means that nothing is off the table. Having him come from a different world than ours, having him be hunted down for his power, him being forced to come to Earth, all of these ideas are actually pretty good, and I hope all of this stuff gets expanded upon in the sequel. Of course, with that mid-credit scene we got, chances are that is what's going to happen. But despite all these new additions, they still nail his personality pretty well. He's impulsive, he's sassy, but he still has a good heart and simply wants to be accepted. One scene that really understood Sonic was in the beginning where he saves that turtle from being run over. Remember in the original games, Robotnik trapped a bunch of animals inside of his machines, and at the end of every stage, Sonic would always save them. And in this movie, the first thing we see him do, outside of a flashback of course, is save an animal. I love that! I like that he starts calling Dr. Robotnik Eggman because his robots look like eggs. That's a good way to bring in the nickname. I like how he's introduced to chili dogs in this movie and that he likes them. I didn't like that fart joke though. No, the movie could have done perfectly fine without that. And all throughout the entire movie, he still holds on to his fun, quirky personality. There isn't a time where he doesn't have some form of smart aleck response to Tom or Robotnik whenever he's talking to him. They really did a good job with him. As I said before, the friendship with him and Tom is okay. It's not that great, but it's decent. I do like the chemistry they have, and there are a couple of genuinely sweet moments here and there between them. I just wish I cared about Tom more. Again, he's fine, but that's about it. He's fine. He's an okay character. I'm glad he learns about what's really important, but like I said before, I'm here to watch Sonic break robots. I also like how in the end, he's actually accepted by the town, and he even gets a new home with Tom and his wife. That's really cool. Speaking of the town, can we just talk about how this movie implemented all of the stuff from the games? Like how the rings are actually portals that can take you anywhere you want? That makes sense since that's what they were in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, where they took you to the bonus levels, which are hard as balls!
It's terrible. It's fucking terrible. Don't even know why I do these dumb videos anymore. It's not like I enjoy making them.
How about the fact that the town is called Green Hills, named after the first ever zone in Sonic? That's a cool idea. They bring up the Mushroom Planet, which is also a zone. This is good stuff. I like all this stuff. I know it's weird that I'm giving this movie credit for doing what it's supposed to do, but when so many of these movies don't do what they're supposed to do, it makes me happy to see one of them finally get it right. After Detective Pikachu, of course. I also like how this movie doesn't give us Super Sonic in the end. I remember the director said that he thought about it, but decided against it, as something like that needs more build-up, and he's absolutely right. Also, it wouldn't have made much sense considering that the Chaos Emeralds aren't even in this movie at all. You see, your boy knows a thing or two about Sonic lore. Speaking of the power, I like how they implement that in the movie too. How it's kind of like an electric power, which would make sense since Sonic goes fast and stuff. He doesn't shoot lightning or anything, he just generates it and uses it whenever he runs fast or attacks a robot. Again, it's a cool addition that both makes sense and doesn't mess with the character in any way. Overall, this movie nailed Sonic. Stop it! They nailed his personality, his backstory, and also, his new design looks great. I like how he actually has two eyes now, as opposed to just one weird binocular eye. Now you'll never unsee it either. When the movie focuses on the human characters, it's pretty slow, boring, and honestly not that funny. But when it focuses on Sonic and his stuff, it's actually pretty enjoyable. Again, none of this is groundbreaking or even that remarkable, but it's still fun. You can tell this is aiming for family audiences, which is fine. It works well for who it's aiming for. But let me tell you guys about the one thing that everybody can like, and that is the never-ending pasta bowl at Olive Garden, baby! Oh yeah! Oh yeah, and Jim Carrey's also great. Jim Carrey as a crazy, egotistical jerk-off who thinks he's better than everybody else, and yet is also an incredible genius that's actually a believable threat? Yes! Yes, please! This is the one thing everybody actually liked when the first trailer dropped. People were still a little weary thanks to Gangster's Paradise and the modern talk, but outside of that, you could tell Jim Carrey just felt right. And it made perfect sense considering what he's known for. This is his typecast, and he is completely in his element here. Dr. Robotnik has always been a bit eccentric, to say the least. Even in his more serious interpretations, you could always tell that there was something just a bit off about him. But looking back on the original games, well, yeah, he trapped helpless little animals inside of machines and wanted 7 shiny rocks so he could take over the world. Yeah, I think Alex Jones would make fun of this guy. Who better to bring to life a crazy evil scientist than the man who played with the powers of God, brought insanity to a courtroom, dressed as a Christmas furry, and literally became a living cartoon thanks to a green mask? I ask you that. Sure, he doesn't exactly look like the character, until the end of the movie anyway, but he still feels like the character. This is a good example of a film taking liberties with a property, and it actually worked out pretty well, and most people would probably agree with me. So in this movie, Dr. Robotnik actually works for the US government, and after Sonic pretty much blows his load all over Green Hills... Stop it! Dr. Robotnik is the one put in charge of hunting him down. And from that point on, Jim is just 110% into his character, like he always is. His speed, delivery, and chemistry with the other actors is just top notch. He just steals the show in every scene that he's in. Even in some instances where something shouldn't be that funny, he finds a way to make it pretty funny.
We take it apart, piece by piece. See what makes it tick.
Not to mention, he easily has the funniest line in the entire movie.
I was spitting out formulas while you were still spitting up formula.
I was breastfed, actually.
Nice. Rub that in my orphan face.
And not to mention, he has probably the best scene in the entire movie. There's a scene in the middle of the film where he's analyzing Sonic's fur for its power, and while the computer is scanning it, he just puts on some music and starts dancing. And it is as glorious as it sounds. The funniest part about this is the fact that he has a CGI T-Rex that he pretends to chase him around until it bites his head off, and I just can't stop but think, this man works for the government. How many taxpayer dollars went into this setup so a grown-ass man can pretend to be chased by dinosaurs? I just love it. This is Jim Carrey at his absolute finest. Which, of course, leads me to talk about the climax of the film. It's pretty damn fun. Sonic the Hedgehog, in my opinion, is a movie that gets better as it goes on. At the beginning of the film, it kind of just plays out as your typical cartoon character in the real world kind of film. But as it goes on, slowly but surely, it does start to feel more like a Sonic film. Now, I've heard people say that this is a problem because the whole thing should have felt like a Sonic film, and yeah, you're right, it should have been. But again, when you see so many of these kinds of films never become the film that they're supposed to be, I should give this one credit for being one of the first that does start to get it the more it goes on. Which again, leads me to the climax. With magical portals that can take you anywhere, and Dr. Robotnik using the power of Sonic's quill, both end up having a chase that goes all around the world. They end up in Paris, they run through the Great Wall of China, and the Great Pyramids of Egypt. Already a better climax than Revenge of the Fallen.
I am directly below. Enemy scrotum. My brain hates my eyes for seeing this.
The only way they could have made this better is if maybe they went to other worlds, like other famous stages that are in the games and stuff, but that's just me. And of course, in the end, it all ends with Sonic going... Shit, can't say Super Saiyan since he'll do that in the next movie probably, so... Full Cowling 100%? Yeah, he goes full Cowling 100%. Let's go with that. So of course, in the end, Sonic goes full Cowling 100%. And like in the games, wouldn't you guess it, he jumps into Robotnik a lot. It may sound silly, but first of all, that's what happens in the games. And secondly, it actually does look pretty cool. finally, once Dr. Robotnik is sent through the portal to the mushroom world, he begins to look a lot like the character. And he looks pretty freaking good. Also, at the time of me recording this, the sequel has been officially announced, and Jim has stated that he does want to wear a fat suit in order to truly look like the character, and now I am super excited to see him in the sequel. All in all, Jim Carrey did a fantastic job in portraying one of the most famous video game villains of all time. And the actual interpretation is pretty darn good too. He's fun, funny, and genuinely threatening too. They say a great hero is nothing without a great villain, and Sonic has troubles with a great villain like this. Although I must ask one single question. Why the hell did Tom feel it necessary to get in the backseat to destroy one of Robotnik's machine during that one chase scene? Seriously, just let Sonic destroy it, you fucking donut! Sonic the Hedgehog will more likely be remembered for all of the controversy and behind-the-scenes troubles as opposed to the final product itself. But with all that being said though, the final product could have been so much worse. Overall, I think the movie is a pretty good but not great experience. It's solid enough in all the right places to make both the general moviegoer happy and the Sonic fans happy too. Sure, some fans of Sonic might feel a little gypped that they have to wait for another movie in order to get the true Sonic experience they were hoping for. But, like I just said, it could have been so much worse. So I say to those fans, count your blessings, okay? You got a decent Sonic film when it was looking like it was going to be an awful Sonic film, and you can thank the internet for that. And this is coming from someone who got both an awful Dragon Ball movie and an awful Avatar movie, okay? So again, count your blessings. Honestly, I'm surprised that Sonic looked as good as he did, after all the extra money that was put into fixing his design, to the point of bankrupting the animation studio that he was made at. He better look good! And now we can only imagine how original Tails and Knuckles would have looked like. And to think that there's some alternate dimension out there somewhere where that is the Sonic movie they received. But fortunately, we're not in that dimension, are we? We're the dimension that got an overall pretty good movie. It's nothing spectacular, but I don't think it was trying to be. It just wanted to be a fun, simple, and rather safe family movie about your favorite fast, blue, chili dog eating hedgehog. And for what it's worth, I think sometimes there's nothing wrong with that. All we can do now is wait and see what the sequel will have in store for us. Maybe it'll suck as hard as this one was supposed to, or, like the actual game, it'll go on to become one of the best of its class. I know that's a long shot for Sonic the fucking Hedgehog, but hey, you never know. You never know.